You do everything right. You visualize, you journal, you wake up early. You speak affirmations with conviction. You even practice gratitude religiously. But nothing seems to change. The life you want still feels like it's behind a locked door. And you begin to wonder, what else could I possibly do? This is where Owen Hermstring begins, not with motivation but with disillusionment. The first and most dangerous illusion, he says in The Law Behind the Laws, is believing that hard work alone unlocks divine reward. It's a comforting myth, but it's also a trap. According to Hermstring, the universe does not respond to what you consciously desire. It responds to what you energetically match. This means you could spend your days doing all the right things while still carrying a deep undercurrent of unworthiness, fear, or lack. And that emotional frequency? It overrides your actions like static on a radio channel. Hermstring writes, if your heart says, I don't believe I deserve this, no affirmation will rewrite that signal until you align the core. This is law number 1, the law of energetic truth. It states that no matter what your surface actions are, the universe will always mirror back the truth of your deepest frequency, and it doesn't do this to punish you. It does this to reflect the part of you that needs to be made whole. Let's make this real. Imagine a woman who wakes up at 5 a.m. every morning to meditate, visualize, and read. She journals about the business she wants to start. She creates vision boards, attends workshops, and works 2 jobs to save money. But under all this effort, there's a lingering belief. I'm not smart enough to succeed on my own. This belief isn't in her planner. It isn't in her affirmation cards. But it's encoded in her energy, and so the universe, acting as an honest mirror, keeps bringing her situations that reinforce that belief. Partners who dismiss her ideas, bosses who undervalue her, launches that fall flat. It's not her effort that's flawed. It's the dissonance between her conscious action and her unconscious identity. This is the misalignment Hermstring calls the great interference. Effort becomes magnetic only when it is harmonized with belief. And belief must be anchored in identity. What does this mean practically? It means that before you ask the universe for anything, you must ask yourself, who do I believe I am without this thing I'm asking for? Because that's the identity that's currently creating your experience. In Chapter 2 of The Law Behind the Laws, Hermstring gives an exercise called the mirror test. He instructs the reader to stand before a mirror, look into their own eyes and say, I am fully worthy of what I'm asking for. Then watch what happens in the body. Do the shoulders tighten? Does the stomach sink? Does the face twitch or the throat close? These reactions are the body's language. They tell you the truth about your alignment, and it's this truth, not your efforts, that becomes your signal to the universe. So how do you realign? Hermstring offers a 3-step foundation. Step 1 is radical honesty. You have to become aware of the emotional programs you've inherited. Are you chasing success because you were told poor people are lazy? Are you seeking love because you were abandoned and now feel unworthy? Are you working 16-hour days to prove your father wrong? Until these truths surface, your actions are camouflage. They look productive, but underneath, they're driven by fear. Step 2 is emotional rehearsal. This is where most people fall short. Visualization is not enough. You must learn to feel in your nervous system what it would be like to already have what you desire. This means you must train the body to no longer feel anxious, desperate, or unworthy when imagining the life you want. Energy is not a thought, it's a rehearsal of safety, Hermstring says. When you feel safe in abundance, love, or freedom, you become a magnet for it. Step 3 is identity shift. This is the deep reprogramming Hermstring insists must precede all manifestation. If your old self says, I hustle because I'm afraid, your new self must say, I create because I trust. This is not affirmation, it's embodiment. It's how you breathe, walk, speak, and decide. In the end, the universe is not ignoring you. It is simply obeying the frequency you forgot you were emitting. And that is the harsh, liberating truth behind law number 1. Before energy responds to your effort, it responds to your identity. Change that, and you change your reality. Most people wake up each day unaware that they're carrying a kind of invisible wallet. Not one filled with cash, but with energy. And more specifically, emotional energy. Owen Hermstring calls this emotional currency, and he warns that we're spending it with every thought we allow, every feeling we nurture, and every belief we protect. The universe doesn't just respond to your words or your plans, it reacts to your emotional vibration, to the quality and consistency of the emotional signals you broadcast, whether those signals are ones of scarcity, fear, frustration, or abundance, gratitude and expectation. In the economy of energy, your emotions are your currency, and you are constantly making transactions with them. It's one of the reasons why, as Owen puts it in The Law Behind the Laws, you can visualize your goals and speak affirmations, but if underneath you're emotionally bankrupt, you won't attract anything but more debt. He's not just talking about financial debt, he's talking about energetic debt, the spiritual kind, the emotional kind, the kind that drains your ability to manifest. Think about how you start your day. Do you wake up feeling anxious about what's coming? Do you mentally rehearse arguments, rejections, or past failures? Do you feel resentment while scrolling through other people's highlight reels online? Every one of those reactions, every single emotion, is a spend. You are spending valuable emotional energy, and most of us don't even realize it until our account is empty. Hermstring explains that this emotional currency works much like compound interest. If you invest a little joy, peace, or trust each day, the universe adds momentum and begins to match your energy in ways that seem miraculous. On the other hand, if you emotionally invest in self-doubt, jealousy, fear, or anger, you're compounding lack. The law works both ways. Here's the deeper problem. Many people think they're doing the right things, working hard, being productive, checking boxes, but inside, they're fueled by invisible emotions that contradict their desires. They say they want love, but they constantly feel unworthy. They want financial abundance, but they're living in panic and self-blame. They want healing, but they believe they deserve punishment. This disconnect between what you say and what you feel is why your life may feel stuck. Because the universe doesn't respond to your words, it responds to your dominant emotional state. In The Law Behind the Laws, Owen tells a story of a woman who had built a 7-figure business but kept attracting partners who drained her emotionally. When they broke it down, they discovered that despite her professional success, her dominant emotional currency was guilt. She had been raised to feel unworthy of having more than others, and every time her business grew, she unconsciously paid back her guilt by choosing emotionally unavailable or destructive partners. Her outer wealth didn't change the outcome because her emotional ledger was still operating in deficit. So how do you change your emotional currency? First, you have to do an emotional audit. Sit with yourself and ask, what are the feelings I spend most frequently? What emotions do I return to without even thinking? What emotional beliefs do I protect because they feel familiar, even if they're painful? This self-inquiry is not meant to shame you. It's meant to show you the currency you've been using to buy your reality. Because whether you're aware of it or not, your emotions are placing orders with the universe. Second, you have to interrupt emotional transactions that no longer serve you. That means stopping yourself mid-thought when you're rehearsing negativity, comparison, or judgment. It means feeling the urge to react, but choosing a higher emotion instead. That's the moment when you begin shifting from unconscious spending to intentional investing. And third, you have to emotionally embody the version of you who already lives your desired life. Not in some fake toxic positivity kind of way, but by creating micro-emotions of safety, appreciation, confidence, and joy every single day, even for 10 seconds, even while washing dishes, even while standing in traffic. That's when the rewiring begins. That's when the emotional account starts to change. Hermstring writes, "The universe does not accept counterfeit feelings. It waits for you to generate the real thing, not just once, but consistently, before it delivers." So if you feel like you're being ignored by the universe, ask yourself, what am I broadcasting emotionally day after day? Is it matching what I claim to desire? If not, then the solution isn't to work harder. It's to spend differently, change your emotional currency, and the universe will change your return. One of the most misunderstood laws Owen Hermstring explores in The Law Behind the Laws is the law of subconscious loyalty. It is a deeply hidden mechanism, often invisible even to those who are self-aware. This law reveals why so many people feel stuck despite doing all the right things, because no matter how hard you try to progress consciously, your subconscious may be protecting unresolved pain, and your loyalty to that pain becomes the anchor holding you in place. To understand this law, You have to first accept one brutal truth. Your subconscious doesn't care about your dreams. It cares about your survival. And sometimes survival means emotional protection. It means avoiding anything that even remotely resembles past trauma. But here's the paradox. If your subconscious associates success, love, or visibility with past pain, it will sabotage every conscious attempt to get there. This sabotage doesn't show up as dramatic chaos. It's subtle. You delay making the call. You procrastinate. You forget the opportunity. You choose someone emotionally unavailable. You ignore the email that could change everything. And then you say, why does this keep happening to me? But what's really happening is loyalty to an emotional wound you haven't fully acknowledged. In the book, Hermstring recounts a story about a man named Daniel who repeatedly lost jobs just before being promoted. Daniel had talent, discipline, and drive, but every time his big break came close, he'd unconsciously trigger a conflict or make a decision that led to collapse. Through guided introspection, Daniel realized he had an unconscious belief inherited from his father, who failed as an entrepreneur, and warned him, "Men in this family don't rise too high. When we do, we fall harder." Without knowing it, Daniel had internalized this story as a form of loyalty to his father's failure. To succeed felt like betrayal. This is what Hermstring calls emotional contracts. These are subconscious agreements we've made to remain small, to stay hidden, to remain broken. Because somewhere deep down, we believe it honors someone we loved or keeps us safe from harm we once endured. And that's the secret killer of progress. You can't move forward if you feel that healing will betray your history. Here's where this law gets even more powerful. Sometimes your loyalty isn't to another person's pain. It's to your own identity that was built around the pain. If you've spent years identifying as the one who was abandoned, mistreated, overlooked, or hurt, then healing means giving up that identity. And that can be terrifying. Because who will you be if you're no longer the one who suffered? Hermstring writes, "Your dreams live in one house and your loyalty to pain lives in another. But you can't sleep in both. You must choose which one you will inhabit. And that choice requires you to not just process pain, but to release the attachment to who you became because of it." So how do we begin to activate the law of subconscious loyalty in our favor? First, you must identify the root memory or emotion that your subconscious is protecting. This is usually a childhood experience, a family pattern, or a formative event that shaped your perception of what's safe. This could be a time you were humiliated, rejected, criticized, or punished for succeeding. Once identified, you need to examine the belief you formed in that moment. It's not safe to be seen. Success makes me a target. Love always ends in pain. Next, you must reframe the loyalty. What if the greatest way to honor your past is to transcend it? What if healing is not a betrayal, but the redemption of the pain you or your family carried? What if your success becomes a testament to what's possible beyond survival? Hermstring suggests writing a new contract, a written declaration that you no longer owe your pain protection, that you release the responsibility to remain broken for anyone's comfort, that you are loyal now to your highest self, not your wounded one. And finally, you must begin to act from that loyalty. Every time you choose courage over avoidance, truth over comfort, or vulnerability over silence, you are telling your subconscious, it's safe now. We're not who we were. We're free. This is how you deactivate the self-sabotage loop. This is how you make the universe respond, not just to what you say, but to who you're finally allowing yourself to become. Because when your inner loyalty shifts from pain to possibility, your reality follows. If you've ever wondered why the universe seems to respond more to your low moments than your affirmations, you're not imagining it. Owen Hermstring dedicates an entire chapter of the law behind the laws to what he calls the law of emotional frequency, and it completely reframes how we understand attraction, manifestation, and emotional energy. At its core, this law states, you don't attract what you want, you attract what you chronically feel. Let's break that down. You can say all the right things. You can write affirmations, visualize your goals, and maintain a positive mindset for hours a day. But none of it will override your dominant emotional frequency if that frequency is shame, resentment, grief, or fear. Because the universe, according to Hermstring, responds to emotional currents, not conscious declarations. Hermstring explains this with a metaphor. Your thoughts are the words you speak to the universe, but your emotions are the tone. And the tone is what the universe hears first. That's why two people with the same goal can take the same actions, but receive vastly different results. It's not the goal that matters, it's the emotional frequency behind it. Think of your emotional frequency as a radio station. You might consciously set your dial to "I'm worthy of love" or "I am abundant," but if you're vibrating at the station of "I'm terrified of being left again," or "I always lose what I care about," the signal the universe picks up is distorted, and the results you get back will match that distortion. This is why Hermstring urges readers not to bypass their negative emotions, but to decode them. Because the goal is not to fake positivity, it's to transform the emotional route that's polluting your signal. The law doesn't ask you to be perfect, it asks you to be authentic, to recognize what you truly feel beneath the surface, and then to heal that frequency. In one passage, Hermstring tells the story of Serena, a woman who spent years trying to attract a healthy relationship. She meditated daily, read books, recited affirmations like "I am ready for love," but still ended up with emotionally unavailable partners. During one deep session of emotional excavation, she realized her dominant emotional frequency wasn't hope. It was anticipatory abandonment. She was constantly preparing to be left, even while saying she wanted to be loved. And that energy, subtle but powerful, was what every partner felt. This law teaches us that emotions are transmitters. People can feel what we don't say. Opportunities respond to what we silently carry. That's why raising your frequency isn't just about thinking better thoughts. It's about feeling safer in your nervous system, more at peace in your body, and more trusting of your life. So how do you change your frequency? Hermstring outlines a three-step process. Identify your dominant emotional state. This isn't always the one you express most often. It's the one you feel when you're alone, when the noise fades, when the distractions stop. Is it anxiety, bitterness, emptiness, desperation? Whatever it is, name it honestly. Trace its origin. Emotional frequencies are rarely random. They come from repeated experiences, emotional wounds, or unresolved patterns. Ask, where did I learn to feel this way? Who did I become to adapt to this emotion? Practice frequency shifting. This doesn't mean suppressing your feelings. It means gradually introducing micro-emotions that elevate your energy. Joy might feel too far away, but can you access relief? Can you allow curiosity? Can you cultivate neutrality, which is often the gateway to peace? And then act from that frequency. Make decisions not from fear but from calm. Engage not to prove but to connect. Create not to be seen, but because you love what you're expressing. When your actions align with a frequency of inner safety and expansion, the universe begins to mirror that back. Hermstring summarizes this perfectly. You are not punished by the universe. You are echoed by it. That echo doesn't lie. It reflects your truest emotional tone. If your echo is chaos, it's asking you to listen inward. If your echo is stillness, it's proof you've shifted something real inside you. The law of emotional frequency reminds us that what we feel consistently becomes our life pattern. Not because the universe is testing us, but because it's attuned to our emotional broadcast. Change the station, and your reality will follow. There's a moment in The Law Behind the Laws when Owen Hermstring writes, "The universe never says no to what you want. It waits for your subconscious to say yes." This single line, though subtle, carries the full weight of what Hermstring calls the law of subconscious permission. It's a sobering truth. If your deepest self hasn't given you permission to receive, no amount of action will unlock the doors you're pounding on. At first glance, this might sound unfair. Why would someone reject what they want most? Why would the subconscious resist abundance, love, healing, or freedom? Hermstring's answer is both confronting and freeing. Because the subconscious protects the self-image, and if what you want contradicts who you believe you are, it will be rejected, gently, silently, and consistently. Let's say you want to be wealthy. You work long hours, invest in yourself, and visualize success. But if your subconscious has internalized a belief like, "People like me don't get ahead," or "money is unsafe," then every effort you make will subtly collapse before it bears fruit. Not because you're unworthy, but because your inner gatekeeper never approved the request. In this model, your subconscious is not your enemy. It's your guard dog. Its job is not to manifest dreams, it's to maintain identity stability. This is what Hermstring calls the homeostasis of the soul. The subconscious resists all change, even positive change, if that change threatens the emotional familiarity it's used to. If you grew up in scarcity, struggle feels safe. If you were constantly criticized, love might feel dangerous. That's why so many people chase transformation while unconsciously sabotaging their own progress. They haven't reprogrammed the gatekeeper. One powerful passage from the book reads, "The subconscious doesn't care about your goals. It only cares about what feels familiar. If struggle is familiar, it will recreate it. If chaos is home, it will seek it out. Until you tell it otherwise, it obeys the past, not your future." So how do we gain subconscious permission? Hermstring outlines 3 inner conversations you must initiate. Awareness of conflicting beliefs. You must first surface the hidden narrative that contradicts your desires. If you want love but fear vulnerability, that's a conflict. If you want freedom but associate success with abandonment, that's a block. Most people don't fail because of effort. They fail because of emotional contradiction. Permission through identity shift. This is the most delicate work. You must rewire your self-image so that what you desire feels natural, not aspirational. This is not pretending to be someone you're not. It's reclaiming the parts of you that were buried under trauma, criticism, or conditioning. When you begin to see yourself as someone who is safe with love, worthy of peace, or capable of receiving, the subconscious updates its filters accordingly. Proof through micro-integration. Hermstring insists that permission is not a one-time event. It is solidified through daily micro-decisions that reinforce the new identity. If your subconscious sees you act consistently with the new belief, even in small ways, it begins to trust the new narrative. This is how permission becomes embodiment. Consider the example Hermstring gives of Marcus, a client who couldn't break through a financial ceiling despite years of grind and hustle. In a subconscious exploration exercise, Marcus uncovered a buried memory of being mocked by a teacher when he expressed a dream of becoming rich. The emotion, humiliation, was never resolved, so his subconscious had equated financial ambition with shame. Once this connection was identified and healed, Marcus was able to receive abundance without internal resistance. His income doubled within a year, not because of better strategy, but because he finally had internal permission to rise. This law highlights the spiritual truth that you are your own gatekeeper. The universe responds to who you believe you are, not just what you say you want. And if your inner narrative says, "This is not for me," then no external force can override that command. But once that narrative shifts, once you grant yourself permission to have, be, and receive, the universe mirrors back your new identity with astonishing speed. Hermstring's closing advice on this law is simple. Ask your subconscious, what are you afraid would happen if I actually got what I want? Listen carefully. That's the belief you need to heal before anything changes. It's a reminder that unlocking your potential is less about pushing harder and more about becoming someone your subconscious no longer needs to protect. Owen Hermstring challenges one of the most common misconceptions in personal development when he writes, "The universe doesn't respond to volume, it responds to frequency." In other words, no matter how loudly you affirm your dreams or how desperately you want them, if your inner frequency doesn't match what you're asking for, the universe will remain silent. This is the law of inner frequency, the 6th law he outlines in The Law Behind the Laws, and it's one of the most misunderstood truths in the world of manifestation. Let's begin with a hard truth. You do not attract what you think, you attract what you are. And what you are is defined not by your surface thoughts, but by the energetic signal your being is constantly broadcasting. This signal is composed of your emotions, beliefs, expectations, and the emotional tone you live in each day. Hermstring puts it bluntly. Your reality is a response to your vibration, not your voice. Think of a radio. If you want to hear 97.3 FM, you can't stay tuned to 92.9 and just hope to hear the music. You must change the frequency. The same applies to your dreams. If you want peace but live in internal chaos, you won't recognize opportunities for peace when they arrive. If you desire love but vibrate in insecurity, you'll attract more situations that mirror that vibration, distance, abandonment, or confusion. Hermstring shares a story about a woman named Leah who attended one of his seminars. She was exhausted, burned out, and heartbroken from a string of failed relationships. She said she had done everything right, affirmations, vision boards, even therapy, but nothing changed. Hermstring asked her to describe what she felt every morning when she woke up. Her answer was revealing: tired, afraid, hopeful, but guarded. That's when he told her, "Your mornings reveal your frequency. If your first emotion is fear, that's the station you're broadcasting from. The universe doesn't skip frequencies to give you what you want. It meets you exactly where you are." This truth is hard to hear, especially if you've been trying, but the power of the law of inner frequency lies in its clarity. It doesn't punish, it reflects. And once you understand that, you can begin tuning yourself to a new signal. Hermstring offers a 3-step tuning method. Identify your emotional home. Ask yourself, what do I feel most often when I'm not trying to control how I feel? That's your current frequency. Be honest, not judgmental. Awareness is the first step to alignment. Practice emotional broadcasting. Instead of just thinking about what you want, practice feeling as though it's already yours. This isn't delusion, it's calibration. Hermstring calls this the emotional rehearsal of the new self. He recommends spending 5 minutes every morning generating the feeling you would have after your desire was fulfilled. Peace, safety, joy, gratitude. Doing this consistently starts to override the dominant signal. Surround yourself with frequency matches. One of the fastest ways to shift your frequency is to be in the presence of people who already live in the energy you're trying to reach. This is not about using others, it's about creating resonance. The human nervous system is built for emotional mirroring. If you spend time with people whose emotional baseline is calm, abundant, or inspired, your system will begin to entrain to theirs. As Hermstring writes, you don't rise alone. You rise through resonance. But what happens if your inner frequency is shaped by trauma, disappointment, or survival mode? Then compassion becomes essential. You cannot hate yourself into a higher vibration. You must love yourself through the transition. The law of inner frequency does not require you to be perfect, only honest and consistent. Hermstring emphasizes this when he writes, frequency is not forced. It is chosen and then rechosen until it becomes your default. This law also explains why some people seem to get everything effortlessly, while others struggle for years with no breakthrough. It's not favoritism, it's resonance. If someone lives in the frequency of belief, opportunity naturally aligns with them. If another lives in the frequency of lack, even abundance will feel like a threat. In one of the more poetic sections of the book, Hermstring writes, "The universe speaks a language, not English, not prayer, not begging, but frequency." And when you finally speak its language, the door doesn't creak open, it swings. That's the key. If your energy speaks the language of fear, the universe echoes back more fear. If your energy speaks the language of self-trust, the universe sends experiences to strengthen that trust. You are not a victim of fate, you are a frequency matchmaker. So if you've been asking, why does nothing change no matter how hard I try? Ask instead, what am I a vibrational match to right now? That's the real question. And once you start tuning your inner world, daily, deliberately, and with compassion, you'll notice that reality, like a faithful mirror, begins to reflect you with astonishing precision. Owen Hermstring doesn't waste words when he addresses the environments we choose to inhabit. In The Law Behind the Laws, he writes, "The space around you is not neutral. Every environment is either reinforcing your current vibration or interrupting your future alignment." This is the heart of the law of intentional environment, the 7th law, and it reveals a truth that many people ignore while trying to change their lives. If your surroundings don't change, your transformation will always be temporary. We tend to think of our environments as passive backdrops. A home is just a place to sleep. A desk is just a place to work. A friend group is just people you've known for years. But in Hermstring's framework, every space, every object, every person you interact with is an energetic participant in the story your subconscious believes to be true. Why is this important? Because your subconscious, not your conscious intention, is the engine behind your reality. You can affirm your goals 1,000 times, but if you wake up every day in an environment that reminds you of past failures, chaos, or limitation, your subconscious remains locked in a loop. You're programming your autopilot with signals that say, "This is who I am. This is what I deserve." Hermstring offers a simple but confronting question. If someone walked into your life today, based only on your physical and social environment, what story would they assume about you? Would they see discipline or disorder, clarity or confusion, growth or stagnation? He shares the story of a man named Paul, who desperately wanted to shift his career path and step into leadership, but his office space, cluttered, dark, and buried in old paperwork, reflected a man still clinging to the past. Hermstring told him, "You're trying to build a new identity in an old costume. The room you're in still thinks you're version 1.0. Paul's transformation didn't begin with a new job offer. It began the day he cleared out his workspace, replaced a cracked mirror, threw away expired documents, and rearranged the room to reflect who he wanted to become, not who he had been. Within months, new opportunities began to arrive, but more importantly, Paul said he felt different. His energy changed because his environment changed. He wasn't acting anymore. He was becoming. This is the silent influence of your space. Hermstring describes it as a low-frequency loop that whispers to your nervous system, "Stay here, stay small, stay familiar." Unless you intentionally break that loop, you'll keep reliving the same experiences in different packaging. To apply the law of intentional environment, Hermstring outlines 3 powerful principles. Audit your physical space. Walk into your home, room, or office as if you were a stranger. What energy does it hold? What emotion does it trigger? If you want clarity, remove the clutter. If you want peace, remove noise. Design your space like it's sacred, because to your subconscious, it is. Edit your social circle. Your 5 closest relationships are not just company, they're mirrors. Hermstring writes, "You don't rise above your circle, you merge into it." If you're surrounded by people who normalize doubt, fear, or passive living, your subconscious will interpret that as safe and familiar. Upgrade your circle to upgrade your signal. Install identity anchors. Place visual cues in your environment that anchor you to your future self. This could be a framed quote, a daily checklist, a new outfit, or a book that reminds you of your path. Hermstring calls these identity reminders, and they're essential for rewiring your autopilot. They don't just motivate, they reprogram. It's also critical to understand that not all environments are chosen. Some people live in chaotic homes, oppressive neighborhoods, or toxic workplaces. Hermstring acknowledges this, but he also insists that microenvironments are still within your power. You may not control the whole building, but you can control one room, one corner, 1 hour of silence each morning. And when it comes to digital environments, the same law applies. Your social media feed, your desktop background, the content you consume daily, these are also environments. They're not just pixels, they're emotional algorithms shaping your internal weather. Hermstring warns, if you scroll through chaos, don't expect your mind to be calm. What this law teaches us is that transformation is not an internal-only project. You cannot build a castle in the middle of a battlefield and expect it to stand. The space you exist in must support the frequency you're stepping into. Otherwise, you're fighting your own environment for every step of growth. The law of intentional environment is not about perfection, it's about coherence. When your surroundings match your identity, resistance fades. You stop forcing change and start flowing into it. You feel at home in your future, even before it fully arrives, and that feeling is magnetic. As Hermstring beautifully puts it, your environment is a spell you live inside. If you want new magic, change the spell. This law closes the loop between your inner vibration and outer reality. It reminds you that while mindset is crucial, it's incomplete without external alignment. You're not just shifting thoughts, you're curating a whole new reality, from the inside out and from the outside in. You've likely heard the phrase, history repeats itself. Owen Hermstring would say, only if you feed it. In the law behind the laws, Hermstring introduces the concept of energy loops, cycles of emotional, mental, and behavioral patterns that replay over and over again because your subconscious is addicted to their frequency. This is the 8th law, the law of energy loops. He explains it like this. Every decision you make, every emotion you allow, every belief you repeat is like a song playing on a loop. If you don't disrupt the playlist, you'll dance to the same rhythm for years, wondering why nothing ever changes. Hermstring writes, "People don't fail because they lack clarity. They fail because they remain loyal to loops that feel familiar but destroy growth. Energy loops are subtle. They often feel like personality traits or habits, but in reality, they're echoes of past conditioning, formed in moments of trauma, rejection, abandonment, fear, or failure that got locked into your nervous system. And the problem? You unconsciously replay them, not because they serve you, but because they feel safe. Take this example from the book. A woman named Elena kept attracting emotionally unavailable partners. She'd leave one toxic relationship and swear, "Never again." But within months, she'd meet someone with the same patterns, distant, withholding, avoidant, and fall into the same cycle of anxiety, need for validation, and heartbreak. Why? Hermstring points out that Elena wasn't seeking love. She was seeking emotional familiarity. Your loop is not about who you want, it's about who your pain remembers. This law hits deep because it demands a confrontation, not with the world, but with yourself. It asks, what are you loyal to that's secretly harming you? There are many forms of energy loops. Emotional loops, always returning to sadness, anger, or guilt, even when nothing in the present moment justifies it. Mental loops, overthinking, doubting, catastrophizing. Your mind spiraling through the same fears despite positive results. Behavioral loops, procrastination, self-sabotage, people-pleasing, not because they work, but because they're wired into your identity. Hermstring warns that if you don't interrupt the loop becomes your life. So how do you break free? It starts with awareness, without judgment. Most people either avoid their loops or hate themselves for having them. Neither approach works. Hermstring suggests a three-step method. Name the loop. Get precise. Don't just say, "I self-sabotage." Say, "I tend to ghost opportunities when I feel I'm being seen too clearly." Naming the pattern reduces its power. Track the trigger. Every loop has a door. It may be a person, place, memory, smell, social situation. What reactivates the playlist? Once you know the trigger, you can pause before you press play again. Disrupt the behavior. Choose a different action. If you usually withdraw, speak. If you normally please, say no. If you hide, show up. The nervous system resists change, but it rewires through consistent new responses. One of Hermstring's clients, a high performer named James, used to shut down emotionally whenever his projects neared success. He feared being overwhelmed, so he'd subconsciously create delays. Hermstring helped him identify the loop. Visibility equals danger, and reverse it by creating new emotional safety through self-reassurance and support systems. Eventually, James launched a six-figure business simply because he stopped sabotaging the final 10%. The beauty of this law is that it's not about fighting your loops with willpower. It's about starving them with alignment. If a loop feeds on fear, feed yourself truth. If a loop thrives on shame, anchor into compassion. When you stop energizing the pattern, it loses its grip. Hermstring notes, the loop is not your enemy. It's your old identity asking to be retired. That's a profound shift. You're not broken. You're just overdue for a software update. And here's where the spiritual dimension of the law comes in. Hermstring writes, every loop you end becomes freedom for the generations after you. This isn't just about personal success. It's about breaking generational energy, the patterns passed down by parents, culture, community. When you escape the loop, you become a new reference point for everyone who comes after. The law of energy loops challenges the most dangerous belief of all. This is just who I am. It reminds you that you're not your pattern. You're the programmer. You don't need to burn your life down. You just need to find the loop and choose a different exit. Because until you do, the universe won't ignore you. It'll keep giving you exactly what your energy asks for, even if it's not what your words are praying for. There's a hidden economy running beneath your thoughts, your actions, and your decisions. But it's not made of money. It's made of emotion. Owen Hermstring introduces this as the law of emotional currency, and in The Law Behind the Laws, he argues that every choice you make is a transaction, and your emotions are the payment. Hermstring writes, you don't pay with your words, you pay with your state. What does that mean? Imagine walking into a job interview with desperation, even though your resume is perfect, or texting someone you're attracted to with neediness, even though the message is casual, or trying to pitch a business idea while secretly fearing rejection. The energy underneath your action becomes the true offer, and the universe responds to that, not your surface-level intention. Most people try to change their lives by changing what they say or do. But Hermstring insists that's only 10% of the equation. The other 90% is the emotional frequency behind it. The universe, he says, does not understand language, it understands vibration. So what are you really paying with? Some people pay with guilt, hoping their sacrifice buys them love. Others pay with resentment, offering compliance in exchange for emotional safety. Many pay with shame, hiding who they are to get approval they don't even respect. The problem is, and as Hermstring puts it, you cannot manifest freedom with the currency of bondage. If your actions are rooted in unresolved emotion, the outcome will carry that energy too. It may look successful on the outside, but it will always feel hollow or unstable. And that's why, as Hermstring often repeats, you can do everything right and still repel what you want if your energy is paying with the wrong emotion. One of the most powerful ideas in this chapter of the book is the notion that emotional currency is inherited. You're not just using your own emotional patterns. You've likely absorbed the emotional economy of your parents, your culture, your past relationships. If your father paid for everything with anger, or your mother with anxiety, there's a good chance you learned those currencies as normal. But normal doesn't mean aligned. Hermstring shares the story of Lionel, a corporate leader who kept underpricing his services. On paper, he was brilliant, Ivy League education, Fortune 500 clients. But he always felt like he had to over-deliver to earn respect. Through Hermstring's coaching, Lionel realized he was paying every transaction with unworthiness. As a child, he was praised only when he excelled, so he internalized the belief that value must be proven, not assumed. Once Lionel healed that core wound and shifted his emotional currency to self-trust, his entire career transformed. He tripled his rates. More importantly, he stopped feeling like he had to perform to deserve space. This law forces us to ask a painful but liberating question. What emotion have I been using as currency, and is it bankrupting me? To activate this law, Hermstring offers a 3-step emotional accounting process. Audit your actions. Pick 3 recent decisions, in love, work, or daily life. Ask, what emotion was I feeling underneath this choice? What was I really trying to buy? Reclaim your currency. Name one emotional pattern that isn't yours, something you learned or inherited but no longer want to pay with. Write a new emotional budget for your next major decision. If you used to pay with fear, replace it with curiosity. If you used to pay with anxiety, replace it with calm preparation. Embodied alignment. Before any major action, a pitch, a conversation, a launch, take 5 minutes to shift your emotional state. Use breath, music, movement, prayer. Don't act until your emotional currency matches your desired outcome. This is what Hermstring calls energetic integrity. One of the most quoted lines in this chapter is, "You don't get what you want. You get the mirror of how you feel when you want it." That single sentence reframes everything. Your results are not just about strategy, they're about state. And when your internal state is bankrupt, your external reality follows. But this law isn't about judgment, it's about awareness. Hermstring reminds us, you didn't choose your first currency, but you can choose your next one. When you begin paying for your life with love, with peace, with confidence, the universe doesn't just notice, it accelerates. The delay you once called resistance was simply misalignment. And when your emotional currency shifts, reality starts giving you what you've been asking for all along, not because you changed your words, but because you changed what you were paying with. One of the most misunderstood dynamics in manifestation and alignment is this. The universe doesn't give you what you request, it gives you what you expect. Owen Hermstring calls this the law of energetic reciprocity, and in the law behind the laws, he reveals its brutal but empowering truth. The universe doesn't reward effort, it reflects energetic norms. In simple terms, whatever you emotionally normalize, you unconsciously allow, and what you allow you attract again and again. Hermstring writes, "The universe is not a judge, it is a mirror. If you say this is good enough, it will agree. If you say this is unacceptable, it will rearrange itself accordingly." Many people fall into a common trap. They try to attract greatness while tolerating mediocrity. They declare bold dreams, but settle for relationships that diminish them. jobs that drain them, habits that contradict their vision. Then they wonder why nothing changes. But in Hermstring's words, energetic reciprocity doesn't respond to your wishes. It responds to your boundaries. To illustrate this, he shares a story of a woman named Kara who dreamed of becoming a full-time artist. She was talented, committed, and dedicated hours each week to her craft. But she worked full-time at a company that underpaid and undervalued her. Despite her efforts, nothing shifted. Through coaching, Kara realized she had normalized neglect in her job, in her friendships, even in her self-talk. Until she raised her baseline, the universe had no reason to upgrade her experience. She wasn't energetically available for more because she had not made space for it. This is the essence of the law. Hermstring explains, you teach the universe how to treat you by what you accept without protest. Every time you tolerate an emotional pattern, a toxic relationship, a limiting thought, you energetically stamp it as normal. And the universe, operating through this law, simply gives you more of the same. This law is deeply connected to the concept of identity. What you normalize isn't just what you allow, it's what you believe you are. A person who believes they are worthy of peace will not tolerate chaos. A person who believes they deserve abundance won't stay in scarcity-based spaces. As Hermstring writes, energy is not polite. It doesn't ask for permission. It matches belief with form. So, how do you activate this law? Hermstring provides a practice he calls the 3 norms inventory. You sit down with a pen and paper and ask, what emotional state have I normalized? Is it anxiety, scarcity, pressure, proving, guilt? What does my nervous system accept as just how life is? What external behaviors reinforce this norm? Look at your schedule, your relationships, your media intake, your environment. What's keeping the old vibration in place? What boundary would disrupt this pattern? What standard must you raise, even if it costs you approval, convenience, or temporary comfort? Hermstring is clear. This law doesn't require a violent rejection of your old life, but it does require one powerful choice: to no longer emotionally agree with what drains you. He says, you're not stuck because the universe is ignoring you. You're stuck because your energy is still agreeing with what you don't want. One of the most striking metaphors in this chapter compares the universe to a thermostat. You don't get to 75 degrees by yelling at the heater, Hermstring writes. You get there by resetting the dial. Likewise, you don't receive love, respect, or abundance by begging for it. You receive it by refusing to tolerate what is beneath it. This principle becomes especially powerful when applied to subtle energy. Hermstring reminds us that normalization happens in micro-decisions. The texts you don't respond to, the thoughts you entertain, the way you treat your body, the words you say to yourself in silence. Every moment is a vote for what you believe is possible. And here's the beautiful part. Once you reset what's normal, the universe responds fast. People disappear. Opportunities emerge. Energy lifts. But not because you manifested harder. It's because you finally gave the universe something new to echo back. As Hermstring puts it, the universe does not upgrade until you cancel the subscription to your old life. That's the reciprocity. The universe doesn't punish, it reflects. It doesn't ignore you, and it waits for you to shift. And the moment you do, everything else begins to follow. Of all the invisible forces shaping our lives, few are as powerful and as overlooked as emotional resonance. In The Law Behind the Laws, Owen Hermstring teaches that before the universe ever hears your words, it feels your vibration. This is the law of emotional resonance, and it states, the emotional tone you carry is the frequency the universe responds to, not the intentions you speak. You can say you're ready. You can write down your goals, visualize your success, recite affirmations for hours. But if underneath it all you feel desperation, fear, doubt, or resignation, that's the signal you're sending out. And the universe is always faithful to return what you broadcast. Hermstring captures this with a sharp truth. Words are static. Emotions are electric. He explains that emotion is the true language of energy. When you experience a feeling deeply, whether it's joy, gratitude, unworthiness, or shame, you emit a signal that moves beyond thought. That signal magnetizes people, events, and circumstances that reflect the feeling's root frequency. One of the key distinctions Hermstring makes is between desired state and resonant state. You may desire peace, love, abundance, But your resonant state may be anxiety, loneliness, or lack. The problem isn't that the universe is ignoring your desires, it's that your internal climate is incompatible with them. He writes, "You cannot hold the vibration of I need and expect to receive I have." The mismatch cancels the signal. This explains why so many people feel like they're doing everything right, practicing manifestation techniques, reading spiritual books, meditating, journaling, and yet their outer world remains stuck. Hermstring says it's because their emotional signature hasn't changed. He shares the story of Daniel, a man who journaled every day about wealth but carried constant fear about bills. He visualized success while emotionally rehearsing failure. Energetically, he was out of alignment. Only when he began to feel abundance, to walk through life as if he already carried it, did opportunities start to flow in. Not because the universe finally approved, but because it could finally match him. This law also helps explain why trauma loops are so powerful. If your nervous system is still wired for abandonment, rejection, or betrayal, even decades later, that emotional resonance can override conscious desire. You may crave deep connection, but the echo of old pain may still be pulsing, silently repelling intimacy. Hermstring says, "The universe mirrors your emotional default, not your emotional wish list." So how do you shift your emotional resonance? Hermstring outlines a daily exercise called emotional broadcasting. It works like this. Identify the state you want to attract. Maybe it's love, peace, freedom, or worthiness. Tune into what that would feel like if it were already true. Not just imagine, feel. Let your body memorize the sensation. Spend 5 minutes each morning embodying that feeling. Breathe it, move with it. Let it color your thoughts. Carry that frequency into your choices. Let the feeling inform how you speak, respond, walk, even how you handle difficulty. Hermstring warns that this process isn't about faking feelings. The universe is not fooled by performance. It's about gradually shifting your baseline, letting new emotional tones become your default setting. One of the most striking metaphors in the book compares emotional resonance to a radio signal. You can't hear jazz if you're tuned to static, Hermstring writes. Change the frequency and the music comes alive. The universe works the same way. When your emotional dial is set to fear, you receive echoes of fear. But the moment you dial into joy, safety, or confidence, even for a few minutes, reality begins to adjust. This law also explains why some people seem to magnetize good things effortlessly. It's not luck, it's resonance. Their emotional field is already vibrating at the level of what they're asking for. They don't just want love, they feel lovable. They don't just want success, they feel capable. And that feeling sends out a broadcast the universe can respond to. At the core, Hermstring reminds us that you attract not what you want, but what you're in harmony with. And emotional resonance is the tuning fork. When you change your emotional state, you change your magnetic pull. So if the universe seems to be ignoring you, don't yell louder, listen deeper. What are you feeling on the inside? Because that's the message being received. The final law in Owen Hermstring's framework is the one that humbles even the most disciplined manifestors, the law of sacred timing. In the law behind the laws, Hermstring describes it as the invisible choreography behind every manifestation, every breakthrough, every moment of clarity or elevation. He writes, "The universe is never late, but it is rarely early. It arrives when you stop trying to rush what can only be revealed through readiness." We live in a culture obsessed with urgency, instant success, instant relationships, instant validation. But energetic transformation doesn't follow the clock on your phone. It follows the calibration of your being. This law reminds us that divine timing is not a delay, it's a refinement. Hermstring says that most people sabotage their manifestations not because they're doing something wrong, but because they mistake waiting for punishment. In truth, waiting is often protection. He shares, "The universe withholds nothing from you. It holds things until they no longer hold you hostage." That means the job, the partner, the opportunity, they don't arrive until you've let go of needing them to feel complete. One of the most powerful illustrations Hermstring uses is the story of Luna, a woman who had been trying to attract love for years. She followed all the advice, affirmations, visualization, energy work, but every relationship she attracted ended in disappointment. Finally, she stopped trying, not out of bitterness but out of peace. She began to love her own company. She stopped performing wholeness and started living it. And only then, quietly, unexpectedly, someone arrived. Not because she chased it harder, but because she no longer used love to fill an emotional gap. Hermstring writes, "When you no longer need the thing to prove your worth, it is safe for the universe to deliver it. Sacred timing honors that shift." This law is also crucial for dreams that feel massive, career breakthroughs, healing from long-held trauma, financial transformation. Sometimes we're mentally ready, but energetically unprepared. Our inner world still holds chaos, self-doubt, or unconscious sabotage. The universe, acting like a wise gatekeeper, doesn't open certain doors until the version of you who can walk through them has emerged. That's why you often meet your next level at the edge of surrender. Hermstring teaches that urgency repels grace. When you're frantically demanding results, you emit the frequency of mistrust. You're telling the universe, "I don't believe you'll come through, so I have to panic my way to control." But sacred timing requires a shift from grabbing to receiving, from striving to allowing. He offers this reflection. You don't grow a tree by pulling on its branches. You grow a tree by nurturing its roots and trusting the seasons. In the same way, your dreams often require winter, quiet seasons, stillness, time when nothing seems to move on the surface, but deep internal changes are unfolding. These are not dead zones. These are the sacred spaces where identity matures and alignment settles. Hermstring even suggests that one of the greatest acts of energetic mastery is living well in the waiting. Not collapsing into despair or pretending it doesn't matter, but walking through delay with grace, self-respect and rootedness. That posture, not the pushy energy of trying to manifest faster, is what signals readiness. So, how do you align with the law of sacred timing? He recommends a shift in focus. Ask who you're becoming, not just what you're trying to get. Celebrate internal milestones, not just external ones. Release the clock. Trust that the delay is divine data. Live as though you already have peace. Don't wait for results to feel whole. Hermstring ends this section of the book with a powerful truth. The universe responds to who you are, not just what you want. When the version of you that matches the desire is fully embodied, the door opens without force. That's the essence of sacred timing. It's not passive waiting. It's becoming. It's active trust. It's the courageous decision to keep tending your soil, even when no fruit is visible, because you know the roots are growing strong. And when the moment arrives, it will feel like grace, not effort. Like something you didn't force but finally received because you were finally you enough to hold it. That's not delay, that's destiny.